Children of Cornstars, how did you find out your parents were Cornstars, and what is your most awkward moment with them? Story 1. My mother is a corn actress. She hasn't been my whole life, but she previously was already an exotic dancer. I never got an explanation about how or why she made the evolution from first form to ultimate transformation, though. When I was a kid, my mom used to tell me she was a dancer. I never actually went to any of her workplaces back then, but now that I'm older, I figured out where they were, and let's just say I have some serious suspicions about a few of my old babysitters. They were probably her coworkers. When I was around 11, I already had a sense of what kind of dancing my mom was actually doing. One day she told me she'd been asked to star in a movie and was thinking about saying yes. At the time I didn't think much of it, but not long after, her work schedule changed dramatically. She explained it was because she'd become a full-time actress. It took me about 6 months, give or take, to start understanding more about how life really worked. I remember the moment I asked her so clearly. We were in the car, on the way home from my swimming practice. Out of nowhere I just asked, "It's corn movies you're acting in, right?" She looked at me through the rearview mirror, and I had never seen that look on her face before. It wasn't exactly shame, but I still don't know what it was. Maybe a mix of fear and relief. It's the only time I've ever seen her expression like that. She nodded and said, "Yes." And because of how heavy that moment felt, I figured I should just be real with her. So I said, "Okay, cool, can we eat at McDonald's?" Sincerely, it would have been far worse even just a year later. At that moment, I still was a real kid, never soloed off or anything, and, well, that was my mom. She was taking care of me by herself for everything since my appearance in this world, and I was sincerely okay with her job. If I'd found out as a typical bratty teenager, I probably would have been a lot more upset. My mom's still active in the industry today, and among my friends, she's kind of an unspoken off-limits topic. I never had to explain anything, they just instinctively avoid bringing it up, even when they're drunk or angry. I love them for that, and I love my mom, even though it's really a turn-off when I stumble upon her work while trying to find solo time visual support. Before we continue, do us a quick favor, smash that like button and subscribe to support our channel. Story 2. I found out when I was 18 because my mom told me. She waited until I was an appropriate age to find out, and she wasn't a big name, so it was unlikely that I would find out myself. She made a good amount of money and just told me that she worked for the government, and by law she couldn't tell me more about it. It was a shock. I had no idea. And after she told me, I did my own research to see if it was true. This may sound weird, but I was curious. This was my mom and I was 18, so I thought I could handle it. Anyway, I looked through a couple of her videos and stopped watching as soon as they were about to bang. One video caught my attention, and I watched till the end. This was the only corn video that I have ever watched in full, mostly because I wasn't soloing off. The man in the video looked exactly like me. He talked like me, and a year later I realized that he banged like me. I checked the date on the video and it was 9 months before my birth date. I watched my conception on Cornhub. Story 3. My mother was a Miss Nude World Champion, was a penthouse pet, and from what I hear, did some solo corn, which was supposedly very soft core. I always knew. Well, at least as far back as I could know, I suppose. When I was a kid, I always met my mom's friends and quickly knew their titles as well. "Oh, she's Miss Such and Such of So-and-So magazine." The rest of the family knew too, and they hated it. We've always been somewhat separate from them because of it. The problem was never me knowing so much, as other kids finding out. I learned early not to tell anyone. Every few years, word would get around on the playground, and fistfights would start. It wasn't until high school, though, that some of the other students were 18 and could go to the dance club my mother worked at, and more fights happened. All in all, it made me pretty screwed up. My standards for what women should look like are incredibly high. I was told my entire life while seeing bare pictures of my mom's friends. This isn't sexual. That messed me up. I get practically no excitement from seeing a woman bare. I don't trust other men. I think we're all motivated by physical relations, or at least that's how I've seen it my whole life. This makes me a very jealous boyfriend. I once did a photo shoot with Janine Lindemulder. That's the chick from the cover of the Blink 182 album dressed as a nurse. She did hardcore corn and was popular around the same era my mom was. During the shoot, she asked me how my mom told me. I told her, and asked if she'd told her kids, to which she responded, "No." They found out though when one of them saw one of my videos at a friend's house. Always thought about that, and how glad I was to have always known what my mother did. Much better than stumbling into it the other way. Anyway, that's my experience. Story 4. I know a guy who has a mom that was and still is an S-worker. We never gave him hard time for it, because it seemed to be in bad taste even when we were younger. His mom was always quirky but incredibly based and a great mother. We figured out what she did when we were about 16. There was a cover story before that. All of us saw her as a mother figure, and I learned a lot by being around her. My parents never knew what she did, and still don't. I think this is about when he figured out what she did as well. Somehow, it never got brought up, and we all kept it really quiet, like indefinitely. I did talk to him about it a few times, and he had the opinion of, it's not really a big deal. She does what she does to provide for her family, and it's just a job. At first, I thought this was just deflection and denial, but as I knew him for decades, his opinion of it never changed. So now, I just see it as his mom raising him right and him being incredibly mature for his age. She did a lot better raising him than my parents did with me. His mom did have work friends that were other S-workers. I did spend time with them as I got older, like college, and got to meet a lot of them. It was a pretty crazy experience to see that side of humanity. And no, I never did anything with any of them. Some were batcrap insane. Most were educated and very well adjusted. None of them had stable relationships. I do think having a mom who is an S-worker had a few deep impacts on my friend though. He was nothing special to look at. Tall but always chubby and not really attractive. But he had charisma superpowers and was always dating the hottest women we knew. Not just hot, but really nice and kind as well. But they were all tens. His brand of charisma was something to behold, like there is competent flirting that most people do. Then there was this guy that seemed to just put women under some spell with a few words and this weird smile he did. I'm guessing it's just antics that his mom was a total pro at that he subconsciously picked up by being around her. She was also able to get people to pretty much fall in love with her in 5 minutes. The other thing about him was his complete disregard for what other people thought. There were nights where we would all go out. 3, 5 dudes and our girlfriends, or my friend's girlfriend's friend group. We were pretty much all outnumbered by baddies. The rest of us guys would be noticing all the other guys in the club, bar or whatever, checking us out and being envious. And in the early days, it would make us feel pretty good about ourselves. But our friend would never ever acknowledge it, or give a crap. He got absolutely zero pleasure or validation from the envy of other people. It's kind of hard to describe, just totally zen. Looking back, he was the least objectifying and probably the most grounded feminist out of anyone we knew, including women. Anyway, great guy, great friend. We all drafted off his charisma by dating his girlfriend's friends. He's been married for 10 years, isn't an S-worker himself, and has 3 kids. Grandma retired when she was 35, and is loaded with dollars. Story 5. My mother is or was a relatively famous corn star. She doesn't do it anymore based on what she's told me. I'd say her name, but that might dox me because I've legit been doxed before by a few crazy stalkers. Anyway, she and my dad actually did it as a business for a long time. From what I was told, he did the accounting and management type stuff. Finding out was pretty shocking to say the least. I got a phone call from a good friend one day and was like, I don't really know how to say this, but I'm pretty sure your mom is her. He gave me a name and I Googled it. It indeed was her. I was really weird about it for a few days and actually stayed at a friend's house to avoid my parents. Then they asked me why I was being so avoidant, and I was like, yeah, because I know who you are. I then told them her stage name, the look on their faces. But the worst part is when other people started finding out on their own. I was 15 at the time, so we know what that stage is like, aka everybody soloing off all the time. People would make jokes, even people I considered friends. I was really sensitive about it for a little while, but by the time I graduated and joined the Marines, I just stopped caring. It's a job. It kept our family housed, clothed, and fed. Crap, we moved to Hawaii on the drop of a dime when I was young and they had been at it a few years. Looking back, I know how much money that entails. It's like buying a Lamborghini. I love my parents a lot. I don't even think about it much, but every once in a while, if I'm close with someone, I'll tell them when they ask what my parents do or did for work, and it's great for two truths and a lie. Story 6. My mother was an S worker, and the first thing I felt was stupid. I was the last of my siblings, to put it all together. My mom was not open about it and told us she did work for the police department. She was a volunteer, so when people asked what she did, that's what I told them. I found out during an argument with my brother and sister. My sister said something like, "You think you are the smartest person in the room, but you haven't even figured out that mom is an S worker." And it all clicked. It gave me a bit of a complex around physical intimacy. I was often told by my grandparents to not be like my mother, so it made it really hard for me to open up to people physically. My mom was a single mother, though, and being an S worker was a good way to make ends meet. Looking back, I appreciate the choices that she made to ensure that my siblings and I had a decent childhood. She still never talks about it. Story 7. My mom was a fairly big deal cornstar in the 70s and 80s before I was born. She is in the XRCO Hall of Fame and she's won several AVN awards. They were in our attic. I don't remember feeling any particular way about finding out. I was a young teen at the time, and I'm in my 30s now. I already knew she acted in Corn, so I guess finding out little bits over time dulled any shock. I recently watched a non-Corn movie she was in for the first time, and I was struck by two things: how beautiful she was and how silly it is to be an actor as one's job. My mom has always seemed like a serious, no-nonsense, unplayful person, and I was struck by how different she seems. It was hard to imagine my mom as a person who would pursue any kind of acting, because acting is, well, kind of silly. I also realized that when she was extremely beautiful and famous and doing Corn, that was the best part of her life. The time she was the most herself. The important parts of her life were over by the time she had me. I guess I understood her more. Still not going to watch a Corn with her in it, though. Story 8. This is as good a place as any to tell my story. It's not a relative of mine who did Corn, but I'll probably never get a closer opportunity to tell this story. So recently we hired this fairly good-looking girl at work. I work in a job where it's only ever one person working at any time, but since she was a trainee, she worked the shift with me. Anyway, we have like 7 hours together, so we're chatting away for a while. Somehow the subject gets on to nudity, and I say, "I'm totally comfortable being fully bare in front of anyone. I've got nothing to be embarrassed by." And she says, "Oh, I'm the same. Like I did Corn a few years ago." She said it so nonchalantly, while I had the what face on. She told me it was the easiest money she ever made. She says her mom knows about it, and while her mom isn't exactly approving of it, she said, "It's your body, I can't stop you." She never told me her Corn name or anything, so I've never seen the content, sadly. But I have no doubt it's 100% true. As she said, she was known as the wild girl in school, so when school ended I had something to prove to everyone. I didn't get it, but she told stories about how she'd just get on Tinder and find guys and just go to their house and bang them, which is cool. I told her, "You do you, sister. I'm not sure if my other coworkers know yet." I subtly asked one of them if they knew what her previous job was, and they had no idea. I know some people are probably going to want to know, so I'll answer it. Yes, I did. Casual conversation at work that night. Later I said, "What are you up to tomorrow night?" This wasn't a proposal or anything, but she responded, "I don't know yet. What are we doing?" So I caught up with her that night, and the story about what we got up to that night gets real interesting, but it's kind of irrelevant to the subject anyway. If people care enough, I'll delve into it. Edit. Yeah, seems as though people want the rest of the story. So, I went out that night. Not actually with her. She remembered she had plans with her friends that night. But I was with my mates. After a few beers, I sent the message, "You out tonight?" to her, and she said she was. So I told her to come to this bar. She came with her friends, and we all hung out drinking for a bit. An hour and a few tequila shots later, I straight up piggishly said, "I want to bang you." She didn't mind though. In fact, she agreed. Instead of heading back to one of our places, in our drunken state, we decided that a cubicle in the girls' toilets was the best place to do it. So we watched from outside. and as soon as one freed up, we just marched on through the girls' bathroom to this cubicle. Pardon my language here, but she started blowing my flute in this cubicle. But wait, guess who decides to get a nosebleed at this exact moment? It's me. I got the nosebleed at this exact moment. So, I'm thinking, what the F is going on? This girl is giving me a blowy, and now I gotta worry about not dripping blood into her hair. But she notices, and this actually turns her on more. She explained later that there's something she finds manly about it. I didn't find anything manly about it. Anyway, we decided that the cubicle wasn't the best place to do it. So we left the toilets, and I washed all my blood off my face and arms, and we went and found some local alleyway that didn't seem to have anybody walking through it. So long story short, there was a bit of banging going on in this public alleyway. Only had people walk past once. The next-door neighbor came out of the place while we were doing it, and I apologized, to which he said, "Nah, screw him. I hate my neighbor. You two be safe." So, he was a G. Good bloke. I remember telling her I recommended your resume to the boss because you were hot and I wanted to bang you, which might have crossed the line, but she thought it was funny when I reminded her the next day. Anyway, a bit later, after we went and got kebabs, we tried to get back into this club we were initially in, and they weren't having a bar of us. They refused us entry. I'm guessing word got around about the toilet thing. 45 minutes later, of her arguing with the bouncers, the police rock up, and they walk her away. They were going to just tell her off and let her walk away. But she said to the female cop, "Frigging eat my dong bish." And then she got arrested and spent the night at the station. I went home, slept, and then had to drive to the station in the morning to pick her up, and she had received nearly $1,500 in fines, which she's still paying off. We had a good laugh about it later though. No one else at work knows about it, as far as I'm aware. Not that we care if anyone found out. It's just not something we're going to go around flaunting. Story 9. Not me, but for work I have been on some corn sets where actors, directors, and someone on the crew had to bring their kids because they couldn't get childcare sorted out in time. Some of these kids I have seen a few times, have grown, and I've spoken to them many times. So, some have seen their parents bang again and again, doing some other nasty things while they do their homework on set. Some have seen movies or pictures lying around at home, or when pre-releases are being watched by all at home. Many are put off from watching corn because it isn't something they had to sneak around doing. They had access to it like watching a cartoon. Some don't see any problem with it. A few, particularly boys in their early teens, try to get too close to their mothers. A few have not learnt how to treat the other gender properly and copy corn logic until something goes wrong and they get their butt handed to them. No kid I have spoken to has been mentally scarred from it, apart from when some drunk or drugged-out bish tries to fiddle with a kid. However, in terms of the kids I've spoken to, they were confident and knowledgeable enough to tell someone, so that a-hole got a serious beating before being kicked to the curb. Story 10. My mom was an exotic dancer, not a corn star. My mom worked her butt off, literally, to give me as good of a life as she could. She quit a few years into it, after she became religious, and married another newly religious man. I'm not sure how it would have affected my social life had she continued dancing, but I feel like she would have gotten out of the business even if she didn't marry my stepdad. She liked the money, but I know that the industry seriously depressed her, and she felt a lot of shame. She had a really messed up childhood and did everything she could to protect her kids from having a life like she had. The funny side of it is that she may have met my brother's father in the industry, because I found a Playgirl with him on the cover. I think she did a lesser magazine or two as well, but thankfully both were more loincloth type gigs and no full bare scenes to really screw my eyes up forever. I honestly think that her becoming super religious affected my social life more than anything. I wasn't allowed to officially date until I was 18, and I felt a lot of the usual shame connected to sexuality that religion can bring. Story 11. My sadly recently passed husband once did a photo shoot for Penthouse with his then-girlfriend, who was trying to break into the industry. This was a couple of years before we met, around 2000. There were no face shots of him, not because he wasn't worthy, of course, but the focus was entirely on her. He just happened to provide the, supporting role in a few of the close-ups. And yes, it was definitely him. He told me the whole thing was physically exhausting. Lots of awkward posing, trying to stay completely still and not fall, while she balanced on the edge of this tiny shelf in some impossible position. Not sexy at all in the moment. That said, the final spread? Honestly, it looked incredibly hot. The photographer, apparently a pretty well-known name, and his wife or girlfriend invited the two of them out for a night on the town in NYC, but my husband turned them down. He wasn't into drinking or drugs, and he just learned that his girlfriend had a pretty serious thing for drugs, which didn't sit well with him. She agreed to pass on the night out too. He said he also got the sense that the couple had more in mind than just partying, and that vibe creeped them both out. He once joined her on a trip to one of the hedonism resorts in Jamaica for a corn industry convention, a full week, all expenses paid. And man, the stories he came back with. He said it was the kind of experience he'd never want to repeat, but also something he never would have imagined putting on a bucket list. But he was damn glad to have had the experience before he died. He's been gone since October, but he made sure to hide a couple of issues for me to find as a rather unconventional but much treasured memento of him. Story 12. Not me, but a guy I went to school with. Had a stepmother who was a famous corn star in Germany. He was going to school in the US because of this, and he confided in me about the whole thing. His parents came to visit, and the stepmom was surprisingly very normal and conservative looking. No hint of what she did for a living. After graduation, I spent a few weeks in Europe and went into a bookstore, and there she was on a bunch of magazines and videos doing some of the most German corn things ever. Story 13. When I was in high school, I liked to browse your usual edgelord websites. Browsing along, I came across a video titled something like Mom of the Year or whatever. It was about one corn star in particular, Tiffany Million. Coincidentally, a show had been released around that same called Wife, Mom, Bounty Hunter, which we knew starred the mother of one our classmates. Now, what are the chances that in the effed-up biography of Tiffany Million, she mentions growing up in Arizona, becoming a bounty hunter, and shows a baby who looks a lot like our classmate? Long story short, we kind of spread the video in hopes of getting confirmation, got confirmation, and then it got out of hand and sort of ruined this person's time at school for a little while. I'm sorry. I should also add, she seemed like a pretty well-known corn star back then. She even had like a 30 dude doing train on her with likes of Ron Jeremy and other corn stars. I don't the names of fascinating stuff. Story 14. I'm not the child of a corn star, but I dated briefly the daughter of one of the most successful independent corn stars of the 1990s. She knew about her father the whole time because he filmed in the mansion, with framed photos of unclothed women everywhere, like wall to ceiling, and the set right down the hallway from her bedroom. The bottom floor of the house was wall-to-wall stacks of VHS and DVD printouts and boxes for shipping. I can speak to how she felt, but as an outsider, I could see someone desperately trying to find some sense of control. She was obsessive, compulsive, and got very uncomfortable when anything was out of place in her personal space. She was very kind but a little damaged, certainly. Story 15. Not me, but a friend from high school. One day, one of our buddies was browsing the internet and stumbled across a video, and to everyone's shock, it featured another friend's mom. He jumped on Ventrilo, where our whole friend group would usually hang out when we weren't gaming, and asked someone else to confirm what he'd seen. That friend did, and then shared the video in the chat. Right in the middle of this awkward discussion, the guy whose mom it was suddenly joined the channel. The room went completely silent. Then one of the idiots in our group, trying to be funny, said something like, "Yo, have you seen this new video? It just dropped," and sent it to him. All of us were yelling, "No, don't open it," but it was too late. He opened it. He didn't say a word, just disconnected. 4 days later, someone in our high school printed out about 600 screen caps with his mom with a dong in her mouth and throws them all over the main lobby of the school during first lunch. He's a doctor now. Story 16. My dad's second wife was a corn star when they met. I was about 12 when they married. They never told me, but I found out when I was in high school when a friend of mine linked me to a video asking if that was my stepmom. Sure enough, it was. We had always joked about her looking like a certain person from a sitcom, and sure enough, she played her in the corn parody. As for my social life, I had like 2 friends, never told anyone, so nothing really changed for me. Once in a while, my friends would make jokes about soloing it to my stepmom, but that was kinda going on before anyways. But she and my dad divorced for some reason, before my sister got to the age of people looking at corn, so all was good for her as well. Story 17. I'll answer, on behalf of my daughter. Both my wife and I worked in corn, me behind the camera in the 80s and 90s and her as a performer. We had a daughter later on who grew up knowing that her mom danced for men. She continued to dance for a time after our daughter was born. But as she grew up, she started putting clues together in her head. We had agreed we'd never lie to her, but let her draw her own conclusions and come to us with questions. Around the time she was 16, she kind of straight up asked, and so we gave her all the details. As we were done, she kind of looked back and asked my wife what her corn name was, which she told her, and my daughter just burst out laughing with something like, "Oh my God, you two are so weird," and just left it at that. The topic has come up occasionally since, but it isn't something we really talk about a lot. I moved on from the corn industry a long time ago, and my wife did as well. Both of us have careers and, best of all, the greatest daughter on the planet. She's now a doctor, doing incredibly well, and despite having the weirdest parents ever, her words, we have a great relationship and I couldn't be prouder of her. So, in short, she thought we were both weird before finding out, thought we were even weirder after, but still, turned out great and doesn't think any less of us just because of what we did in the past. Story 18. I grew up with a kid whose mom was a very well-known corn star in our city. She was even active in our community. She would have a casting night where she would go to a local bar and meet men and women who wanted to be in a video with her. Also, this was when we were teens, so she was active from when I met him as a 6-year-old until we were basically adults. His dad was the videographer and cameraman. I never really talked to him about it. I also don't think anyone was particularly mean to him about it that I remember. My only distinct memories are: 1. He would have very violent outbursts and tantrums throughout primary school, like full-on throwing things, crying. It was intense. 2. We went on a class Europe trip in high school around 17, and he was also going. As our parents dropped us at the airport, his parents were there too. A bunch of us explained to our parents who she was. They didn't believe us, like it was a shocking revelation to them, which surprised us, I guess. We figured if anyone would know, it was them. Anyway, they didn't care. I think they thought it was funny. 3. We had a high school reunion at 10 years, so we were almost 27. He came. I was never really friends with him, so we didn't talk. But I remember him being very quiet and kept to himself even that night. I remember thinking he aged like 25 years. He looked like he could have been in his 40s. Not sure what that says, but it definitely didn't suggest good, healthy, positive things. Story 19. Not me, but I dated a girl whose parents were corn stars, and specifically her mom was one of the biggest in the world, like top 3 in the 80s. Back then they were as rich and well-known as celebrities were. They used to hang out with Al Pacino, Marilyn Manson, Trent Reznor, Vin Diesel, etc. in LA and Hollywood. But yeah, she was not happy. They were corn stars at all, and did used to get crap for it at school. Horrible pranks where kids played the videos of her mom and dad at parties, ostracized by other kids' parents. Then piracy came along, and it was a horrible downward spiral where the industry as a whole made less money and younger, hotter talent came along who would take more dongs and do crazier things, and it ended with the mom being a raging alcoholic with violent and aggressive behavior towards my girlfriend and the dad, and eventually the end of the marriage and family. But all 3 are doing well now and have a decent relationship post all the chaos. Still, she would definitely have preferred them to have had a different job. Story 20. My dad did it for a few years. Luckily haven't seen any of it, but we are going back a few decades ago with plenty of new stuff to drown his content in. He stopped doing it 'cause back then, and I'm sure probably even today, proper corn studios can treat the males quite badly and paid badly too, unlike the female counterparts. He's quite a well-hung man. I haven't ever seen it in the flesh, but he's big enough in flaccid mode for the whole world to see. Great as his son. And what's worse is I'm not well hung, so I must have got my dong from my mother's side of the family. So, yeah, but not seeing it, and just knowing about it, hasn't been that bad at all. It's gross, but without the visuals, it's been fine. No trauma from that at least. Story 21. My dad was not a corn star. He wrote, produced, and directed Corn, much of which starred his girlfriends at the time, one of which I met, and who was younger than I was. I was going to college in LA, and he had offered me a free place to stay while I attended MITS. So he moved me into the place he was paying for, with his girlfriend at the time. I was the new roommate. I was a prim and proper girl who had gone to private schools and was religious enough to consider joining a convent. Yes, I was a virgin. My father introduced me to his girlfriend at the time. He changed them up about every 6 months. Whenever she took me anywhere and introduced me, it was always, "This is her. She's a virgin." It was ew. Yes. They banged in the apartment while I was there. Just ew. Reminder, she was younger than I was. He gave her a Jaguar, so she had a car to get around LA. He told me to use the bus. He used illegal drugs on a regular basis, and lightly pressured me to try them and called me uptight when I didn't. One of my biggest issues was that I knew that most of his lifestyle was financially supported by my grandmother, not from money made from the Betamax videos. He considered them better quality than VHS of his girlfriend at the time and the auditioning replacements. After 1 month, he started pressuring me to pay him rent on his girlfriend at the time's apartment. So, I moved out. When that semester ended, I moved back home. I lived with my grandmother for a while, the one who was financing his lifestyle. I told her that I didn't want to have anything to do with my father again. If he called, I would get her or take a message. But I didn't want to have any conversations with him, and I didn't approve of his lifestyle. I did not tell her that he was using her money to make corn movies, buy drugs, and support his girlfriend at the time. After she passed away, I went complete no contact with him. I have no idea what he has done with life, and I don't care to know. Story 22. My mom was an exotic dancer for a long time. Honestly, I had no clue until late teens, and by then I didn't really care, I guess. Now that I'm older, she'll tell me funny stories about all the crazy stuff that went down in there. Like, one of the exotic dancers called herself Velcro. Yes, really? And apparently, other patrons, even the ones who didn't like my mom, would pay my mom to just sit with them so that they wouldn't have to talk to Velcro because she was always tweaked out and talked about seeing aliens and stuff. Supposedly she did this while dancing too. Also, apparently, an obvious minor somehow got hired and was dancing on stage before anyone realized her age. Yikes. Apparently, her mom got her hired. Story 23. My uncle dated a woman who used to be a corn star for a few months when I was around 12. She had a daughter 3 years younger than me, and we got along well, so we spent a lot of time together over the summer holidays. She was very fixated on physical relations and always wanted to play those naughty flash games, and one time at a sleepover she bought her portable DVD player with a corn disc. We watched it in complete silence, and it was super awkward. I don't think we even talked about it after. Eventually, she showed me her mum's bedside table full of toys, along with magazines and DVDs her mum featured in. She didn't seem uncomfortable about the fact her mum was a corn star at all, and was almost a little proud. In hindsight, the mum was definitely a little unhinged. She sent me paragraphs on Facebook after the breakup about how broken-hearted she was, guilted me to talk to my uncle for her, and even tried to fake a pregnancy. From what I remember, the daughter had a bad past with her birth dad, and maybe had potentially been SA'd. I'm not sure if that's what caused her to be hypersexual, or if her mum was exposing her to stuff. I found her online, and she seems to be doing well, which is a relief. Ultimately, it's a good thing they broke up, because my uncle is not a good person and has his own long list of mental health issues he needs to deal with, but that's story for another time. Story 24. I have 2 stories. I had a guy in my unit when I was in the military, whose sister did corn. The guys would tease him a little here and there, but he was well liked and good at his job. I asked him once, as gently as I could, what that was like, and he said there was quite a bit of tension in his family about it, but that she was still a member of the family and would come around during holidays and other events. She tried to get out of the industry, but as you might expect, it is very difficult to hide that sort of past. On our first deployment, her and some other girls sent his shop a package with autographs and bikini pictures and that sort of thing. Another performer I knew was a girl who dated a friend of mine. We were in college, and she was pretty hot, but super into crystals and astrology and other whoa crap. They broke up after a year or so, and she got into the biz and moved to California. She would come around and visit and buy us rounds, and was generally pretty cool. She also tried to get out of the biz and worked briefly as a waitress at a ramen spot in town. Word probably got out, or she went back to performing or something because she didn't stay long. Story 25. Not a corn star, but I had a friend whose mom was an exotic dancer and an S-worker at the club down the way from our houses. It was cool in the sense that my gay ass was able to go in the back, where the ladies were changing in the back whenever my friends and I accompanied her a few times. She gave all of us $5 to $10 each to buy candy and food and crap like that. Other times, I remember my friend's mom would come back with men, come home and get some lingerie and go sleep with the men. My friend would beg her mom not to go sleep with them. There were times when the mom had been beaten, saved, etc. And my friend didn't want that to happen. She wanted her mom to get a real job and get away from that life. She would cry so much, and her mom would get mad at her for trying to stop her. On top of that, her mom was a terrible influence. My friend was very intimately active from a young age, and her mom tattooed her boyfriend's name on her ankle at age 14. She let her do whatever she wanted and was more the cool mom. Her grandma was more of a parental figure, but could only do so much because she was older. Last I saw her was back when I was 18. She had married the dude she had tattooed on her ankle, and he was terribly abusive towards her. Multiple kids and miscarriages. He cut her off from her entire family and wouldn't let her speak to anyone. When he saw me, he got pissed at her, but I convinced him I was a cousin. I wonder how she is doing. I hope she is still alive and is doing good. Story 26. My dad and mom had a really horrible divorce. My dad was really mad at my mom for leaving him, and really didn't want us to like her. Anything he could do to make her seem bad, he did. So, when I was about 9, he found out my mom had a videotape and decided that the wisest thing to do was to show it to his kids as proof that their mother was a terrible person. Yeah, I don't mind my parents having an intimate life or them filming it, but I think that is probably the worst possible way to explain that. Story 27. What if I have a story about finding out my coworker was a corn star? Would y'all want to hear that, or is this a read the title idiot scenario? Edit. All right, here. Yes, bet. I'll go. So, one day, I wake up to a text from a coworker that just says, Google redhead Lizzie Tucker. First thought was, sounds like corn, but whatever. So I Google it, and sure enough, it's corn. I sit there for a second thinking, okay. Why did she tell me to look at? Wait a second, that kind of looks like the coworker. Oh crap, the coworker has that tattoo on her shoulder. And suddenly, my coworker's secret corn career was revealed. Not gonna tell y'all her real name, sorry. The news spread amongst all of us like wildfire, as you can imagine. She was pretty good-natured about it, honestly. I think when that's your career, you kind of have to accept that it might come out at your non-corn job eventually. She was just like, yep, that's me. And honestly, that was about as awkward as it got. Honestly, I get the feeling that she was used to steering into the skid. If anyone's wondering what type of person she was or if there were any hints to her career, I'd say she's exceedingly normal, and no, not really. Honestly, a fairly sweet girl, flirty drunk, decent worker, had a steady boyfriend, etc. We had an optional work potluck that me and my sous chef created around Thanksgiving for all of us that had to work and were missing out on our families, which she participated in. Brought some killer pumpkin pies and played Cards Against Humanity and Exploding Kittens with us and a few other coworkers. No clue if she's still doing the work or if it was just a part of her past, but I think it was an on-again off-again thing where she'd fly down to Florida and shoot some videos. All in all, pretty cool chick. Story 28. I'm the adult, not the child in this scenario. I'm not at all professional, but I recently started producing corn in a third world country a few months ago through a super random friendship I made with a producer in CA. They're really struggling with quality content the last few years, while I've become a self-professed man-or who knew tons of girls who would happily jump on camera for a couple $100. Perfect match. So, I've been teaching myself how to do this damn stuff all by myself. Very hit and miss, some super hot scenes, some not so much. The solo camera work is harder than I expected. Cue my daughter coming to visit last month. She's used to seeing random girls in my apartment, but combined with film equipment laying around, she's a smart cookie. In about 15 minutes after getting in from the airport, she's like, "Dad, are you making corn in here?" Busted. I explained the whole situation, and she thought it was hilarious. better than what I expected. The super awkward part is, she told me since she's thinking about majoring in film something or other during college, she wants to help me with production next time she visits. When I try to explain how weird it would be for her to see her father banging some girl barely older than her, she calls me a prude. Me, the semi-amateur corn-producing prude. Story 29. Only really put the pieces together when I was 12 or so. I found pictures of her on our PC. I went to one of their events to hang out with a friend, sister of another Cornstar. It wasn't a lewd event at all, though. I have no doubt everyone banged afterwards. Just a casual little event, and I got to hang out with my best bud. Around Christmas time, I went to my aforementioned best friend's house, aka her sister's house, and they were in the middle of a Christmas photo shoot. Yeah, it was weird considering I was like 12 at this point. But when that was done, they let us open gifts, and I got a crap ton of awesome presents. Did it affect my life? Honestly, in a good way. My mom got into the industry through a friend she met who was already in it, and that friend was incredibly generous and seriously wealthy. She helped out with a ton of things growing up. Vacations, school supplies, gifts, all thanks to her. On top of that, her younger sister, who's my age, turned out to be super cool, and we've been best friends for the past 13 years. That particular Christmas, it was actually kind of wild. My mom was in the hospital, so her friend stepped in and bought all of my presents. Back then, I used to make these long Christmas lists, and usually my parents would pick out a few things. But not her, she got me everything on it. That included several $100s worth of video games and a mid-range laptop, which was decent for light gaming and schoolwork back then. Total junk now, though. She easily dropped over $1,000 on me alone that year. Personally, though, I don't mind. My mom always taught me that physical intimacy was natural and nothing to be ashamed about, and I firmly believe that now. It was just another job for her, and it paid a lot of money and contributed so much to my childhood. Story 30. I have a friend whose mom was a corn star in the mid-80s. He's a really good friend, so told me the whole story at the time. Don't really speak to him anymore, after going out separate ways after school finished. Apparently, when he was around 14-15, bear in mind there wasn't the extensive directory like corn sites we have today. He had exhausted the site he was using to stream low-quality still broadband days, corn, so he moved into torrents. He had a penchant for older stuff because he said that it wasn't as aggressive. Fair enough. So, he started accumulating a vast library of corn and sorting into decades. I think he must have had hundreds and hundreds of full movie clips within a few months, so he never really stuck to one movie apparently. He told me one day it was late at night during the school holidays and his family were all asleep, so he decided to have a good old corno smorgasbord and really try and get through some of the videos he hadn't seen so far. A few hours and rounds go by, and he's deep into his 80s folder. After opening one up and seeing that it was a compilation of sorts, he skips forward a bit and finds a nice scene and stars pounding away. A few scenes go by when he looks up and sees what every man dreads seeing. A butch guy with a real old-style corn tash just going to town on his mom. Traumatized, he stopped immediately, obviously, and went to bed to scream into his pillow and pray to the Almighty God above us for him to send down some miracle eye bleach from the heavens. He told me a few weeks later, and I was just completely shocked and had no idea what to say. I kinda wanted to see it because his mom was kinda hot, but I thought better of it due to the sensitivity of the situation. After discussing it a bit, he raised the question as to whether he should confront his dear mother about it, in a subtle way because they were quite an open and hip family and not the stuck-up type, clearly, as his mom obviously enjoyed getting filled in on camera back in the day. We chatted some more, and he went away to think about it. Raises it again the following week and says he's probably just going to ask because he has to know so he can try and get the images that have been burned into his brain out of there, in some vague hope that it wasn't actually his mom and just a doppelganger. So, he says to me as we're leaving school that tonight's the night because his dad was away with work, so he could ask her without any extra awkwardness, as if there wasn't enough already. He came home the next day even more shocked than before and just refused to talk about what happened. It was only a few months later that he told me what happened. Apparently, he got home from school as usual and went up to his room straight away to get changed and stuff, made his way downstairs where he could hear his mom in the kitchen. He plucked up the courage to finally slowly open the kitchen door, and when he does, it's not his mom at all, but it was a 8-story tall crustacean from the pedagogic era, and she turned around and saw he was there and simply just said, "Son, I'ma need about tree fitty." Story 31. Not me, but my best friend in college. She was having a particularly rough day, and I was giving her some love and attention complete with ice cream when she checked her email and saw she had one from her angry ex-stepdad. It was a single video link with nothing else, so she clicked, thinking it would be something funny. It was not. It was her mother doing a DP in a random hotel room. Mortified, she closed the browser and immediately called her mother for an explanation. Long story short, her jerk of an ex-stepfather forced her mother to do a few cornos because he said they were strapped for money, and it was an emergency. She only did it a couple times, and then she left him, so she never did it again. My friend was bawling her eyes out for hours. Nothing I said or did made it any better. She completely stopped watching Corn altogether and lost a lot of her libido for a good chunk of time, which was sad, because she was ravenous in the bedroom. She got over it eventually and forgave her mother instantly because she totally understood why her mom would do it. Her mother is an absolute angel and loves me just as much as the other 4 girls she has. And it never changed my opinion of her. Cess work is a fact of life for some women. And even I have been paid for activities of such nature when the time called for it. I love my friend and her mother, regardless of who or how they bang. Story 32. I went on a date with Rachel Starr a couple of years ago. Believe it or not, I met her on Tinder. I did not know who she was. In chatting, she told me she was a businesswoman in the corno entertainment industry. I shared her profile picture with my buddies on our WhatsApp thread, and they immediately let me know who she was. She met me at a wine bar and we kinda hit it off. I'm not sure what I was expecting, maybe a ditzy corn kitten, but she was very smart and very self-aware, I guess is the best way I can put it. We drank wine and smoked her cigarettes. I don't usually smoke and talked for 5 hours. She was very frank and answered any question I could throw at her. We got pretty personal, talked a lot about her childhood, about the industry, about physical intimacy, sexuality, the types of scenes she likes, how directors want her to play the same sort of aggressive character all the time. It was almost like interviewing her. Absolutely fascinating evening. I had no idea how famous she was until she told me. I think she was ranked number 5 in the world. We flirted. I remember she laughed a lot and touched my leg. I think she was into me, but it's hard to say. The date ended with a hug, and we chatted a little after that, but it faded pretty quickly as I moved on to other Tinderellas, and honestly, I was a little intimidated by her. Anyways, for the record, Rachel Starr is a really smart and really cool gal and even prettier in person. And yes, I went home and soloed off to her videos. Story 33. Not a corn star, but a friend of mine had a mom who was in Playboy. Everyone knew about it. We'd all seen the pictures, of course. She was trying to break into acting and landed a few small roles, but it never really took off. Eventually, she got married, settled down, and moved on. I was around 12 when I found out, but the rumor was that she owned it, told some friends, word got around, and that was it. No drama, no scandal. People just accepted it and moved on, and it turned into a funny story about her wild Hollywood days. My friend was pretty athletic and good-looking. His dad had been a college football player before going into business, and well, his mom was in Playboy, so he was popular enough that no one gave him much grief. Just the occasional MILF joke, which he always took in stride. They were a cool family, and in high school they even let us drink at their place as long as we stayed over. Story 34. There was a similar question a while back about the children of S-workers in general. As someone who currently works in the corn industry, this is a topic that is pretty near and dear to my heart, and so many of the answers from that thread stuck with me. So, I guess, a couple of things. 1. You're absolutely going to get different answers in a decade or so. The post-pandemic growth in OF creators and how relatively common it is for people to at least dabble in it has really shifted the demographics for S-workers. 2. The reason that matters is that S-work experience or have experienced much higher rates of poverty, mental health and substance abuse issues, and histories of physical, emotional, and S-abuse. Those issues are more likely to affect the childhoods of individuals raised by S-workers. The answers from the previous post showed clearly that active, honest, and attentive parents had the best relationship with their children, keeping their work life separate, giving the child age-appropriate information as they grew, and a large supportive extended family was the best way to protect them. The ones that had it the worst had completely neglectful or downright abusive parents. That isn't unique to the children of S-workers, but I'd venture to guess it happens more often. Then you have really successful long-term Cornstars. These people are going to have access to more money and resources than someone that did a few videos in their early 20s. The reason it matters here is the relative commonality of the experience and the varied backgrounds of this generation of S-workers. People that weren't traditionally likely to become S-workers are doing just that. That also means a more varied experience in upbringings. Story 35. I work in the realm of I don't have kids, but I know several women who do. The bullying thing is not anywhere near what people make it out to be. I'm saying this as objectively as possible. Our lives and the lives of people associated with us are nowhere near as exciting or ruined as people hope for. People hope bad things will happen to us and our family, because morally they see what we're doing as reprehensible. But the fact of the matter is that in a world with 8 billion people, we really don't matter that much unless we try to. You hear about the most notorious women on who are constantly chasing press opportunities. You don't hear about the people minding their business, making their money, and staying private. The private ones are the ones with kids. No one knows. And in 3 years, when those kids are old enough to go to middle school, the internet will be so oversaturated with AI-generated content that it will become harder and harder for anyone to ever know. Deep fakes will be everywhere. Many people will be in corn without even knowing it. This, of course, is already happening but will only proliferate. Society will be forced to become more accepting, and it will only become easier for us to live normal lives once we retire. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update.